Welcome back to another episode of the Ty Brady Way. Welcome Scott Heusser to the show. We was on a little earlier in the show when I first started the show, and we were just talking before we started recording that the last one we recorded in my truck. We sat in the cab of the truck, and if you start a podcast show, you're like, well, how am I going to do this? And we went for it. Yeah. Now it's evolved, right? A little better.
Now, big time. You're big time now, Ty.
Not necessarily big time. But I was commenting that last time I remember the show, we talked a lot about leaving corporate America, and you had started in your journey and being an entrepreneur and inspiring people, and you had recently got back, I believe, pretty close to you'd got back from North Carolina, and how long? Yeah, that was a while ago.
4 years.
Yeah, but I wanted to talk a little bit about so how's it been since you burned your ships, and here you are back in Utah. Let's start from right there. How's it been the last 4 years?
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's been a great run for our agency. We've actually had immense growth in our agency, and I think part of it, when we were in North Carolina and we were focused so much on North Carolina, it almost was too micro and we weren't enough macro. And so when we left, we started getting more places involved, like our Florida markets, Virginia markets. And we've had growth of over the last 2 years of 125%.
Woo!
Which we're writing a fair amount of applications already.
Yes.
And so when you're doing that for the last 2 years, we had 73% 1 year and 49 the next.
Yeah.
So between the two, that's where we're at. But it's been great because it's really made me think more, just not on just one market, but multiple markets.
Yeah.
It's really, we've seen a lot of growth from that.
Well, I mean, you have to have that stable home base, right? Mm-hmm. Every place, everybody that starts a business, they have a home base. Apple has their home base, Amazon has their home base.
Mm-hmm.
They're where they started. But now that you've gone out in multiple markets and you've seen the growth of your agency, what's been some challenges that you faced in scaling?
Yeah, I think the hard part is when you first start off, like we had maybe 30 insurance agents, and most of them were direct to us. And so the more you involve managers, sometimes those managers don't have the same skill set as you. Maybe it's not that it's bad, but you find that it might get diluted a little bit.
Sure. It's not you.
It's not me.
Yeah.
And so like what they're doing may not be exactly how I would do it, but that doesn't make it a bad thing.
Sure.
And that's one of the issues that I've seen. Also, one of the things that you always comment about when I first started this, that nasty word greed.
Yeah.
Right. And I've watched where agents that we have taken from making next to nothing,
yes, to
all of a sudden they're making $200,000 a year.
Yeah.
And they become very self-centered. Instead of thinking, hey, how can I benefit everyone? It becomes a win-lose situation. It's win for them, lose for others that are around them. And I would say that, and you warned me about it. And
yes.
I was like, oh, whatever. And it hit, and you were my therapist through a lot of that. But that's one of the things that it's unfortunate because a lot of us have had mentors, like you've been a great mentor of mine, Kevin Owens, a lot of others, agencies that have been great mentors to me. And you got to remember those people.
Sure.
And stay loyal to it. And I tend to just think, why do people do that? Why do they go sideways? And it really comes down to that word greed. And so I would say that is one of the biggest issues. And third, I would just say I was kind of burned out when I actually even started our insurance agency.
Wow, corporate America, no one knew that.
Yeah, nobody really knew that. Corporate America had really taken its toll on me. I'd worked for Wells Fargo Bank for 13 years.
Yeah.
I was with Zions Bank for 1.5 years. Then I was with the other place I was with is United Healthcare for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And it really had just taken its toll on me. Mm-hmm. And so that's one thing that I've kind of battled the entire time is staying excited. Because because I see like you're like always like energized and excited and like, hey, I'm gonna go set the world on fire, and I'm like looking at Ty going, I just want to get out of bed this morning because I'm beat to death from what I've experienced in the past. And so that's one thing that has been a big challenge that I don't think a lot of people would even know.
Yeah.
That has been a challenge for me.
I never worked per se in corporate America, but I worked for a brother and sister team, and I was the in between, and that took a toll on me because in some regards, I was the facilitator for A and B, and I was either the punching bag or I was the one doing the punching to serve another person's purpose.
Yeah.
And it was exhausting because I'm getting pulled this way that we have to do it quicker, faster. We have to be in budget, and then someone over here that wants to give the farm away because they can't communicate and be able to come to an agreement on selling the home. And it was just a brutal mess because I'm like, when the house is done, you tell me you want me to repaint it? I mean, that's thousands of dollars. Well, we can't sell it. Well, give them a $5,000 allowance. Let them go paint the house on their own. Yeah. But no, it has to be done before they move in. And I'm like, that was just a brutal concept for me. But with corporate America, and I've had many people on the show, when they talk about corporate America, they typically say, well, it's what have you done for me lately? Mm-hmm. Did you see that a lot?
Way too much. I felt like I was competing with myself. Whereas like our business, what's nice about it is when we have year over year growth,
yeah,
it's building on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in corporate America, where I was with United Healthcare or Wells Fargo or whoever it was, I was starting from scratch every single year. And I was
sometimes
always,
every quarter, right?
Yeah. And I was competing with myself. So let's say I kill the goals the year before. Guess what? That means less bonus money for me the next year.
Because they're going to expect what you did the same
results. Plus.
Oh, wow.
And so that just got tiring. And the other issues were, like, I'd feel like I'd go to kick a field goal. And then all of a sudden the field goal, I'd go to like, hey, I'm ready to kick it. All of a sudden it's moved.
Now you got to kick it from the 60-yard line.
Then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, now I got to kick over this direction because some manager thought this was a brainiac idea. So I'll give you a little story on that.
Sure.
My last year with United Healthcare, we were struggling to hit our numbers, and we knew the goal was just way too high for us.
Yeah.
Well, right before Thanksgiving, they had asked us to do a call blitz, and your agents always participated and other agents.
Yeah.
And we'd get the closers.
Yeah.
So I sent pictures of these agents doing the phone calls. I get a text message, Scott, why do you have the same people doing the calls? Because they're the ones that write the business.
Okay. Yeah.
Get new blood in there. Okay, so what do? I go get new blood.
The results,
not as good. No lie. 2 weeks later, we need to get our leads to the closers. So do you see why I'm saying they moved the field goal close? And so like to go kick it would drive you crazy.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
That's when I made a choice to just like, I'm doing something. I don't even care if I take a pay cut. I'm done doing this. I'm too smart to deal with this stuff.
I also, that person who was talking to you, I'm sure was getting pressure from their up, because it's their bonus and their livelihood and it's just a cycle.
Yeah, it's everybody wants to justify their job. I noticed that too when I came over to Kellogg and started building our agency. Ron Kellogg could care less about fluff.
No.
And in corporate America, there's a lot of fluff.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the big issues.
Is it like who you know?
It's that,
okay.
And it's like, hey, I'm going to be doing this stuff over here, even though I know it really doesn't help the applications, but I'm going to do that to look good. So it's a bunch of busy work that doesn't amount to anything.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's the app that's written, right? That cash register doesn't ring until that app is written and that business stays on the books. And wow. So
that it just gets exhausting.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with that on a daily basis, on a yearly basis, anything like that. And that was it. When that happened at the end, I'm like, and there was other issues along the way.
Yeah. So
I got overlooked for promotions, and
I hear that a lot too.
all the time.
I had a nurse on the show that talked about he went to school. They paid for his degree to get a $5,000 a year raise. $5,000 a year raise, and he got passed over 3 times. And it was 5 years later he finally got it, and he's like, well, now I'm selling insurance on the side and I'm making 30, 40 grand. He's like, that's the best part-time job I could have. And he's like, now he's looking at, okay, what is my game plan so I can retire even earlier than I was planning?
Yeah.
Because, people will work and work and work to hope that their 401k at the end of 40 years is there, and that they had that proper planning for retirement.
One year, it was when I was 38 years of age, so I'm now 46.
You're a young pup.
I'm still young. What happened is I got overlooked for a position. It was just one of those situations where it didn't work out, but it really bugged me. And one of the things that was always nagging at me is I had not finished my degree.
You didn't?
Yeah. So I had 12 hours left.
Wow.
So
12 hours?
12
Not
hours.
12 credits.
12 credit hours.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
12 credit hours.
Yes.
12 credit hours.
So that's what, a semester?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know how busy you are being a dad and working full time and trying to coach football with your kids or whatever. And I went to my wife and I said, Steph, I'm going to go back and I'm going to finish school. And she goes, you've tried this before. But I had a fire in me.
Yeah.
And I took 3 hours during the summer to show her I was serious, knocked that out. Took 9 credits during our busiest part of the year. August to December, she would help me. We'd stay up late at night after the kids went to bed, and I finished it.
That's awesome.
And I walked right after annual enrollment period. And that was one of the coolest things I think I've ever done. But it taught me something. I was like, I need to go do that, because I was tired of people saying, hey, this is why we didn't give you the job. I just didn't want to give anyone
an excuse.
And I knew I'd given them everything I had.
Well, that's amazing. How long ago? So when did you graduate your bachelor's degree?
So it would have been 6 years ago. So that would have been what year?
Wow.
Yeah, 2017.
I learn something new every day on this show with that, wow, back to school.
During annual enrollment period.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was stupid.
It's done though, right?
I was like, I'm going to be busy. Why not just throw something else on the fire? And actually, one of the professors became an agent of mine.
Oh, that's awesome.
I started talking to him about what we do, and he went and got licensed.
That's talk where your feet are.
Yeah.
I was supposed to speak in Las Vegas this last week, and I didn't make it because I have back surgery tomorrow. But I was going to talk about the idea and theme of the show, or the stage, was one idea. What's the one idea? And I just kept thinking, there's talking where your feet are.
Yeah. And
any business owner telling people who you are, what you do, but talk where your feet are, and you just don't know what that's going to turn out to be.
The Barsons always bring that up. Ralph talks about what is our job.
Talk where your feet are.
Yeah, and he goes, to meet as many people as humanly possible during the week and tell them what you do.
Exactly.
And that's why I always try to tell our agents, like, this is a numbers game. Get out there and just open your mouth. Tell them what you do. And it's amazing how many people, when you do that, they either want to know what you do. They kind of want to know, like, hey, how does this work? Or they go, hey, I have somebody that needs help.
That's right.
Or I need help.
Yeah. Or they're like, oh, okay, great. I mean, it's. I don't think I've ever been like, oh, I'm so bored. I mean, I don't bore them to death. I just this is what I do. I was at a football game. I was coaching my kid. We just made it to the championship game, so we made it through the semifinals. And I ran into a guy that works for Lead Center. And what's really small world is, so I met him when he was at the Kellogg Development Summit, and he was talking on stage about Lead Center and how to use it. Well, his brother coaches with me. So he's like, oh, do you remember me? And I'm like, yeah, I do. So we got talking about Lead Center for a minute, and I was like, oh, I got to go coach. But, it was just amazing that I'm like full circle. But yet the coach that I coach with, he's like, I don't understand what he does. He does something with insurance. Is that, because I mean, it's not, unless you know it, right? You don't know exactly what that means. But he was like, no. And then I'm like, well, I work with your brother on Lead Center. My agent's by Lead Center. He's like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't know what my brother did.
Yeah,
so he didn't know what I did. He didn't know his brother did. And he's a pharmacist at a hospital, so I know what he does. But
that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a small world.
Other challenges these last 4 years that, I also, and one of the things you said, greed, I also think ego.
Mm-hmm.
And I have said this, and I'll say it again, is there's no such thing as a solo entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
They talk to somebody. They learn something from somebody. They may have went online. They didn't all of a sudden one day have an idea that I'm going to do this. And I think it is important that you give people credit for how I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for Ron and people in my life that kept me going. And
Mm-hmm.
when I needed someone to talk to, there's times I called you like, Scott, dude, I'm going to blow my stack here. So calm me down before I,
go do something dumb.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
We've both done that multiple times.
You're like, am I crazy? And then sometimes just talking it out and having someone listen, like it's that relatability factor. But I don't know. It's interesting because we've taken a lot of people from making $40,000 a year, $30,000 a year, couldn't pay their bills, to making six figures and multiple six figures. And that's what's rewarding. That's what we do. Yeah. But do you have a story that comes to mind of somebody you've helped recently? I think you mentioned somebody about a couple that the last 3 years, who was it? Your basketball, your boys' basketball. Yeah, what's that story?
So Austin and Ashley. So Austin was 26 years of age at the time. He was working for an insurance agency.
Oh, was okay.
Yeah, just doing like automobile insurance and
home and auto.
Yeah, home and auto. And he was training my son, and I just started talking to him, and I'm like, "Hey, Austin, you should do Medicare." And he goes, kind of like listen to me, because it always has to marinate.
Sure.
Is that how I always?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, what do they do? Like, how does this work? And is this a scam?
Yeah.
Right? Like they're thinking like multi-level, Utah, all of that. And the more we got talking about it, he finally was like, "Okay, I'm going to do this." Well, that year, Nate and Morgan, Maudsley, you've had Nate on.
Yes.
And I said, "Nate, why don't you take them under your wing? You're going to North Carolina and have Austin and Ashley come out with you, and you guys work a kiosk and work leads in this expansion market, and we'll see what you can do."
Sure.
Like I was thinking, go write 30, 50 applications. That's just a newbie. I didn't want to like overdo it. They wrote out over 100 policies, 160 policies that annual enrollment period.
Wow.
But they're workhorses.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people think, oh, Scott just gave them this opportunity. They don't realize, because as well as I do, you can hand 5 agents the same opportunity and one of them might make it successful.
Absolutely.
Maybe 2.
Yes.
And the other ones, they might come at you and go, well, why are you giving me more opportunities, or what this or that? And you're like, do you realize that person is getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning? They go work out. Then they do their morning thing. And then they're doing things at 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
You don't write that many apps by working 8 to 2 o'clock.
Not even close. No.
And so I don't think people realize you really have to jump in and do this. So this is going to be their 3rd year out in North Carolina. They're thinking about even moving out there at this point.
Wow.
But it has changed their lives.
Yeah.
And now they're like, the problem is money starts making us a little bit more complicated.
I mean, money's great, right? It can make life easier, or it can make life harder.
It can complicate us.
Sure.
And sometimes people don't handle that really well. And I tell people all the time, I go, either brings you closer to God or further away.
I was going to say, it already brings out the characteristic that's already inside when the money gets involved.
Are you going to be generous? Ron taught me to be generous. Mm-hmm. Right?
Absolutely.
That's one of the things that I picked up from him from day one. Mm-hmm. Kevin was generous with me. Mm-hmm. You've been generous with your time. You give me opportunities. You'll let me dive into certain things. You don't have to, because we're really competition when you think about it. But you don't look at it like that, and I don't either.
No.
But too often we get so about us that we lose focus on what really matters.
What's that saying about serving the masses?
Mm-hmm.
You live with the classes or something. Serve the masses. You live with the classes, or like.
But
I
however,
probably butchered that.
but really, like when it comes down to it, I really try to run our agency, my wife and I, in a very generous model.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and I get people all the time like, you do too much, like you do, and it's backfired on us. People have thrown it in our face at times, but you know what? I'm not going to change who I am.
No,
That's who I
nor
am.
should you.
Yeah.
I mean, you've impacted so many people's lives, not only individuals but families' lives and posterities, because this business is transferable. And I went on a appointment with my daughter, and she's been on a few appointments, but man, is she good. Just people loved her,
Mhm.
ate her up. I mean, here she is, 22 years old, and I'm like, man, what would I have done when I was 22 to be in this industry? And she does it part time because she's like, I got a full time job, and I think she's a little scared to jump in with both feet, but just to watch, because she's been around it her whole life,
Mhm.
but just the word she used, I'm like, man, you used the word risk on the hook. I'm like, dang, she's been listening to somebody, not me. No, yes,
They don't listen to their parents.
No, that's
Good luck on that.
like, oh my goodness. And then she brings up the ancillary products, and they're like, even though they turned her down, she's like, well, I think you should really do this. And it was just amazing to watch. It was a proud dad moment.
You've been in this industry. I'm going to ask you a question because it's something that's happened to us.
Yeah.
But you haven't done enough for me, or you didn't do anything for me. And I want to kind of talk about mine, but like with
like
you,
how
do you deal with that? Because like it just happened to us. Like, and I was like, holy cow! Like, do you know the text messages that I responded to, the Friday nights when I took your phone call, the Saturday night when I left my family to take that call to help you, but you didn't do enough.
It's a struggle, right? Because you know
Mhm.
what you've been able to do. If they're willing to, here's the thing: if they're willing to communicate
Yeah.
what the frustration is, I'm more than happy to resolve it, right? But typically, what I find out when that's happened to me, they've been talking to a lot of other people, and they may be talking to an agency that is captive, as an example.
Yeah.
And somebody's telling them, well, you're going to get all the free leads, and you're going to get a computer, and you can sit at home and make your phone ring, and all those things. Well, you can't compare the captive model with the independent model.
Yeah.
But I don't know that, because unless they're willing to communicate. Now, we could try and come up with something. We could do something together to blend that, but there's no way you can't have 100% of the commissions and all of the computers and leads and all of this, and then expect to get all the 100% of the commissions. It just doesn't work.
Right.
Now, I tell them, if you find that, please let me know, because I'd jump on board on that deal. Well, then when they do a little bit further investigation, they find out what I was telling them is what I was competing against. But I think we're going to get approached, meaning I get pitched all the time, come sell this product, and all those things. I'm not saying that's bad, but make sure you give the person that gave you the opportunity in the first place the chance to communicate and reconcile it. When they're not willing to come to the table and tell you what's really going on, you can't solve anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you can respectfully disagree too. Maybe they think the captive model is the way they want to go.
Right. When you brought up a point like how we get approached to sell all these different products
all the time.
Ron always taught us this.
Yeah.
Stay focused on what?
One thing.
Medicare.
Yeah. Yep.
And really, like, I've kept my tunnel vision. I've done other policies, like other insurance carriers when it comes to outside of Medicare, but it doesn't make us what we make on the Medicare side, because we're experts. We're like amazing at it, and I think at times we forget that, and we lose sight, and we get that kind of squirrel mentality, squirrel, instead of going, hey, just stay focused.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone's like, Ty, you're leaving money on the table, and you could just add this product or that product. And I'm like, I get it. But until I can get the agents that I have on board just selling one or two things, like something you help me out with is I contract them with 3 carriers. I can contract them with hundreds, but I don't want them bogged down with all of this stuff and not making any money. I want them to have activity that generates leads, that generates to a sell. I don't want them doing all this busy work where they're just spinning their wheels, because it's hard enough to get them to come in the industry. It's hard enough to help them make money. It's hard enough to survive the first 2 years.
yeah.
I mean, why would I want to add other components?
I was just training an agent out in North Carolina, and that's where we were this last weekend. He's brand new to the industry, came from Vivint.
Oh, wow.
So whole different home securities to Medicare.
Yeah.
And I started throwing a lot at him, like different carriers, and I was like, oh no, just too much. Because all of a sudden he started pulling back and was like, I don't know enough.
Yeah, you can't.
And I was like, okay, sell United.
Yes. Become
an expert at United, and then we'll add Humana or Aetna or Devoted or whoever else. I go, first figure that out.
Yeah.
Because sometimes as managers, we push too much at times, and then we push too little. So it's like finding that middle ground too.
Well, and I've talked about this in my leadership calls, is that we have part-time, full-time, or sometime people, right? And the full-times, you maybe should engage them a little more, right? Like, how'd you do today? How'd you do this week? Then the part-timers, I mean, I've started to use the word take what the defense gives you.
Yeah.
And with coaching 11-year-old boys on the football field, take what the defense gives you. If they're going to give you the flat pass, take the flat pass.
Hit it.
If they're going to give you the deep route, take the deep route. But this year I had to develop a new quarterback for the third year in a row. So, and now we're in the championship.
You were telling me you were having major issues. They were going to fire you.
Yeah, they were actually.
They were going to kick you out like they did the University of Utah.
But they're
coordinator,
a new quarterback, right? And I'm throwing all this at him. I'm like, get out. You got 2 seconds. Get the ball down the field. Don't run the ball. Stay in the pocket. All the things you're throwing at this guy. And he's like, well, you told me to stay in the pocket. Well, you told me to throw the ball. You told me to not run the ball. And I'm just like, okay, now all the things that I told you, that's called football IQ. Now make a decision. And just tell me why you made the decision, because you are the heart and soul of this team, and everybody feeds off of you. And
just go play football.
Yes,
and just be a football player.
And then at the end, have fun. Because it's easy to criticize from the sideline. It's easy to criticize. Oh, he missed the open pass or whatever. That's easy to do, but you didn't see what he saw.
Mm-hmm.
So it's. But you know what? We're in the championship. I'll take it.
Yep. And I think that's one of the things that I learned recently is going out to North Carolina and working with all of these agents this last weekend. Sometimes as a manager, we get too far away from it.
Yeah.
And I thought, that was one of the things that Costco CEO, he's always been a part of the business and understand what people go through. And I think sometimes we have to check that a little bit, because the more money you make, all of a sudden you get further and further away from the front line.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I've realized that I need to be on the front line a little bit more and see what they're going through, see the struggles, because it's a little bit different now than it was in 2020.
Absolutely.
When we had COVID, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then before that, it was different. And then in 2013, it was different. That's when I started in this. So it changes. And so if we're not, like, as a leader, willing to change with it, we become dinosaurs, and we're not given the right information. And I kind of was like, oh, there's some things that I need to pick up on, and just being in the market and listening to the agent managers from United Healthcare, they're giving me tidbits on, hey, focus on this next year. I was like, great. But if you're not out there, you're not going to get those nuggets.
That is so true, Scott. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Any last thoughts you'd like to leave with our audience? Man, that was quick.
Yeah,
that was.
We could talk for hours. I wish they could record our phone calls that you have at times. I just think it's a privilege to be associated with you, Ty, first and foremost. Honestly, you've been a huge help. Like I said, that first year when I was in North Carolina, I think I tried to quit 70 times.
No,
you talked me out of every single time.
No, don't do it.
You're my therapist.
Yeah.
And I think with this business, take it seriously.
Yeah.
Treat this like a business. Too often I have agents that look at me.
A hobby. That's where it's frustrating.
And they're kind of going, well, I'm making some money at it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking at them going, treat this like your business.
Yeah.
When I walk into a Walmart and I see an agent working a kiosk,
it's a business.
Guess what I think? Are they in the right location? Do they have the foot traffic? Is there more foot traffic over here than there?
Yeah.
And then instead of going to the Walmart manager and going, hey, can you put me in a busier spot? go, hey, I've been really watching this area. This is where I'd like to have this kiosk. Can we put it there?
Yeah.
There's a difference, because if we just leave it up to them, they might put you in the pantyhose aisle.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
the meat market.
What, the office space, the show where he gets put underneath in the basement, right?
He's upset about his stapler, right? So you got to be careful about what you ask for. And so I just want, like, this business is amazing, but treat it like a business and have some fun with it along the way. But really like look at the angles and go, okay, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. If I do this, this is what's going to happen. And guess what? Take a chance on yourself.
Absolutely.
Take some risk.
What I tell people, no greater investment than in yourself.
Yeah. But I love this industry. Like, after going to North Carolina,
you've come back fired up.
I
can see it in you. You come back. Yeah. It filled your cup. Yeah. You're like, hey, I'm ready to,
Because too often I'm just on the phone answering calls and text messages, and so I'm not there with the people.
Yeah.
When I get around the people, the agents, game on. And I would just say, like, for any of us, like, get out. Whether you're a new agent, whether you're a manager, get out, be with people, make those connections.
Activity generates results.
Yep.
Right. And it's easy to say, well, I'm just gonna sit here and watch a movie, or it's easy to be normal. But if you want to be extraordinary and live a lifestyle people never will, you need to do this, and you need to bet on yourself.
Right. Well, it's just like a Saturday. I'm at a kiosk
on a Saturday.
Do I need to be doing that right now, Ty?
No.
I could have been with my family, but I took it upon myself for 5 hours. I sat at a kiosk because I wanted to see what it was like.
Sure.
And if we would have left 3 hours in, he wouldn't have got deals that were coming, just walking up to us. Hey, my plan's going away. My parents' plan's going away. Can you come out and meet with us? There's 2 deals.
Yeah.
It just, like, that was happening all day long. But too often we quit.
That's right.
We quit too early.
That's right.
It's just like when I went and door knocked on agency doors in North Carolina. I wanted to quit. It was raining that day. Mm-hmm. Everybody was telling me no.
Yeah.
And I was like, one more door. And I'm driving along, and it was George Stevens Insurance Agency in Durham, North Carolina. Walked in there. Hey, what are you guys doing about Medicare? Oh, we write Medicare policies. I go, what about duals? Oh, we don't do that. I go, do you guys know of United Health? Like, let's get you situated with United Healthcare. 3 agents later.
Wow.
That was the start of our agency. It taught me not to quit early.
Yeah.
Especially on the bad days.
Well, here's one last thing is people will call us crazy until we're successful. But everywhere along the way, they're calling you crazy. It's not going to work. Your family is saying, what are you doing? You're crazy.
Everybody thought we were nuts to go to North Carolina. Everybody, except for you.
Yeah. No, I just didn't have that opportunity because and I didn't need it, right? Yeah. I mean, it was different then, but everybody calls us crazy until you're successful.
Then they want it.
Then they're like, what did you do? Right? Yeah. Or do you have people coming to you now, like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 years later, that they're like, they were calling you crazy? They're like, what are you doing? Because they see everything you're putting out there?
Yes.
Yeah,
it happens, and people are like, what do you do? And I'm like, you really want to know?
Yeah.
And are you willing to go there?
That's right.
Because we did that. We sold the house.
Yep. You burned the ship.
We took teenage boys across the country to a place we had no family, no friends. And now we have some of the deepest relationships with people in North Carolina. It's like our second home.
Yeah.
Our kids were having blasts. Like Cade this last weekend, we'll leave it on this. Cade went out with Brooke Hampton. She's one of our insurance agents, part of our church group out there. And the boys went out fishing on ponds in North Carolina on Sunday night.
There you go.
Catching bass fish.
I'm jealous.
It's just awesome. They were having so much fun. Whether they were doing it legally or not, we don't quite know.
We're not going to talk about.
Yeah, we don't know that.
They're fishing on the golf course where you're not allowed to fish, and they came there.
But it opened up doors that we would have never, and it makes life a lot more fun.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Yes, thanks for being on, Scott. As always, share, like, and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.